Do you believe in fate?
No,
Why not?
because I don't like the idea that I'm not in control of my life.
I know exactly what you mean. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The Matrix.
Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
What truth?
That you are a slave like everyone else. You were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more. Follow me.
There's an old saying. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. When a person goes into politics, for the most part, they usually have good intentions. Some don't. And if you've never been in the field of politics, then it's hard for a person to comprehend what it's like. And with having the wool pulled over your eyes, the average person having the wool pulled over their eyes, they can't conceive or even imagine what actually goes on behind the scenes. And then, of course, they see all these TV shows, and some of them actually predict it pretty well. Like, I can't watch House of Cards because it predicts it projects the world of politics pretty accurately. There's some things they embellish on, but for the most part, it's pretty accurate. So, if you're here and you're watching this, listen to my voice. That's the reason I used The Matrix, that scene out of The Matrix, to open the show. Because you're here because you want to learn about something that, for the most part, you've ignored this whole time. But you want to know more, like what's going on, what's really going on behind the scenes. I can tell you this. I've seen things that could wow your imagination and things that could haunt your nightmares. So the question at this point is, how much do you want to know about the world of politics? This is the red pill moment. There's some things about the political parties that you're not going to want to know, and there's some things that you'll be shocked to know. And some things, well, not some, but many, that are hidden in plain sight. And you're going to want to kick yourself for not seeing it before, but it's not your fault. That's how the game's played. So, this is why I created this show. I had a friend that I've been kind of tutoring, if you want to put it in that vernacular, that he didn't know what he thought he knew. His whole world got twisted upside down because he got curious. He knew something was wrong, and so after talking to me, I told him, hey, you can look it up yourself. And that's what I invite you to do, is to not take what I say as truth, but look it up yourself. Research it yourself. And you will find out that the world you thought you knew isn't as black and white as it seems.
The Matrix is a system, Neo. That system is our enemy. But when you're inside, you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters. The very minds of the people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it. Were you listening to me, Neo? Or were you looking at the woman in the red dress?
I was...
Look again. Who's it?
This isn't the Matrix.
No. It's another training program designed to teach you one thing. If you are not one of us, you are one of them.
See, the first thing you have to understand is that we were all born into a system. And unless you come to this point that you're at right now, you will stay in that system. You will stay a slave to that system. And I didn't realize exactly how much, how much the system had a hold of people until I actually got into politics. Now, I'll tell you first and foremost, as a black person, to basically not be a Democrat is like being a pariah in the community, or the black sheep. And I became a Republican in my 20s. Actually, I was one before then, but I had what I called a political identity crisis. I asked a teacher in high school, you know, I I talked to him. His name was Joe, and I was like, Joe, you know, I support the Democratic Party, but I'm finding myself actually agreeing with some Republican ideas. I'm having an issue here. And so he asked me 4 questions. And those 4 questions were, do you believe in a big military or a small military? Big government or small government? Are you for or against gun rights? And are you pro-life or pro-choice? And based on my answers to those 4 questions, he was able to tell me which side of the political spectrum I was on. And when he told me that I was a Republican. Oh, I fought that for years because I didn't want to face the reality that I had basically just broken through my first barrier out of this constructed system that society has decided that I need to live in because of basically the societal barriers that I've been born into. So, in my mid 20s, I met another black Republican, and she actually invited me to my first meeting. Um, and I was starting to warm to the idea of, becoming a Republican. And eventually I ended up joining the party. And I found out after that, and it really became, in case some of you haven't realized, it's really evident now that Trump's president. If you're a black Trump supporter, people look at you like you have lost your mind and keep telling you, he's a racist. The problem is with that, ask them, okay, you say he's a racist, prove it. And you'll stump them because they can't prove it. I've been asking that question to people who've been telling me he's a racist for the last 3 years, and nobody can actually tell me how. Well, I told you he's a racist. No, you haven't. You haven't provided any evidence. You provided talking points that's given to you by the media, but you haven't actually said how. You haven't given any proof. I'll give you proof as to how he's not, and which I've done time and time again. But they are so inert and so, entranced in the system that we were born in. It doesn't matter what color you are, really. But they are so entranced and so hypnotized by the system that they literally fight to protect it. And that's why this scene out of The Matrix, this is why I chose that scene, because it illustrates this point incredibly well. In this show, we will explore basically from what they tell you. We'll go through from what you hear or what you think you know, do the research into the actual subject, look at the historical implications of this subject, and then there's the reality. Because we'll go from theory to reality through research and what history tells us. Because no matter what they say, and one of the biggest lies I've ever heard was, well, communism wasn't tried. They didn't do it correctly over there. Well, it's funny, they've tried it time and time and time again, and it seems to have failed. Well, socialism works. Well, yes, works so well in Venezuela and Cuba. As a friend of mine who grew up in the former Soviet Union will tell you, yes, everybody's equally broke. Um, and I actually may bring him on for a few episodes to kind of explain how things were in the time of the old Soviet Union, because the best people to ask are people that lived in that era, lived in those countries that some people are trying to turn the United States into. Now, am I going to be beating up on the left? More so than not. But am I going to beat up on the right? Yes, because there are some things on the right that, I put it this way: if you go too far to the left or too far to the right, you end up in the same place. People like to say that politics is based on a political spectrum of left or right. I've always thought that it seems to be, if you go either extreme either way, you're going to end up at the same. So it's more like a political compass. And being a moderate in this kind of in the middle, only going slightly right or slightly left is going to be your best option. Because if you go too far to the right or to the left, you're going to end up in an authoritarian, nightmarish government either way. Now, there are some books, some movies out there that kind of illustrate what some people that you've never heard of before, people that kind of run the world, and not so many words, uh, what their plans are for the rest of us. And lesser demons like yourself and myself are not part of that plan. But we'll get into that in later videos. But this is the intro video, and you have to ask yourself, are you ready to take this step? Are you ready to see how far down this rabbit hole goes? Because I am one of a few people that will get on here and we're actually telling you what politics is really about. And why? Not because for me, I can't speak for them, but for me, it's about my experience. I've experienced politics on both sides. I I've tried to join the Democratic Party, which is another episode itself. But I've been there. I've been in the parties. I've worked in the background. I've worked on campaigns. I have been a candidate. So I've been where a lot of these politicians have gone. I didn't hold the same public offices they did, but losing my first election, my first general election, taught me a lot. And so basically, I'm going to share with you my experience and my knowledge. That way you have a better understanding of how politics in this country works and what the truth is behind the issues. So, that will conclude this first episode. You have a decision to make. How far down the rabbit hole you want to go, if you want to go down that rabbit hole. If you don't, well, thank you for tuning into this first episode. Take the blue pill, go back to sleep. Otherwise, take the red pill and enjoy the ride.